All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Today's Born by the Studio Pans event. My name is Joe Reski. I'll be your host for today. We're really excited for today's virtual field trip. We always love when we take a trip to Toronto, Ontario, to the Aquarium of Canada. And today's is going to be our guest event. We have Sam joining us as our education at the aquarium. So they're going to be talking to us a little bit about the eagle rays. We're going to get to see the eagle rays in action, doing some feeding, learn all about their ecology and the work that the aquarium does with them. So Danielle, it's so great to have you joining us live today. We've got an awesome group of classrooms from across North America. We're looking forward to meeting the rays and, of course, firing away with a little Q&A.
Excellent. So as Joe was saying, my name is Danielle, and in the water you can see Sam. Sam, give us a wave. There we go. So Sam has a very important job today. He is feeding these lovely spotted animals. They are called spotted eagle rays. We only have 3 in this habitat, and we feed them during our dive shows every day because they steal food from the other stingrays. So we have to keep them well occupied. They are very intelligent animals. So our spotted eagle rays will come over to Sam when they're hungry, and they have to do a special task in order to get their food. So Sam, can you show us your pipe? So this is his pipe. It's just a simple elbow joint for a regular pipe, and we stick it in the water, and the rays have to come by and touch their nose to it, just like this one here. This is our youngest male, and then he gets a food reward. So this is part of our enrichment training here, and they will come and get their food reward, and then they'll swim away, and then they'll come back for another one. So if you look inside the bucket that Sam has, there is division. So each of the different stingrays has a different amount of food they should eat during each feeding. So the one right in front of us here, the larger one, that's the large female, and the one just to the right, this one here, that's the large male. That's how you can tell the 3 apart. I'm really good at telling them apart, and so is Sam, but if you're just watching now, it's probably not the easiest to tell the 3 spotted eagle rays apart. However, you're not the ones feeding them. Sam is, so he's an expert. It looks like today they have definitely live clam. I can see that. Can you show us a live clam?
So today on the menu, we got some bonito.
And they have bonito and tuna. Oh, sorry. Bonito, which is like tuna, and live clams. The shells in there are actually alive. They're clams. And the spotted eagle rays will crush them between their teeth, and the shells will become part of the rocks on the bottom of the habitat. So he's going to continue to feed them when they come around and do their task. The reason we do this is mainly so that they don't steal the food from the other stingrays in the habitat. They are very intelligent, but also it's to give them more to their life in captivity so that we can keep them well entertained. They're pretty intelligent. They can actually recognize themselves in a mirror, which is a little different from most of the other animals we have here, which can't. Even your own household cat probably can't recognize themselves in a mirror until they are trained to do so. So these ones are very intelligent. Now we only have 3 spotted eagle rays because they do get fairly large. Our 3 are young, so they do have a little bit more growing to do. The largest one and the oldest one is this female that Sam has right here. The next oldest is the male, the larger male, and then the youngest one is the smaller male, which he'll come up in a moment. The smallest one is actually the only one that is from another aquarium. The other 2 that you can see right now are from the wild. So I can see the little boy coming up. He's right there in the middle. I'll just point to him, this one. So that's our littlest one, and it was actually born at one of our other aquariums. He was born at Gatlinburg. And then he moved here a couple years ago with the other 2. And they will continue their lives here because then we can get to know them a little better. In the wild, we don't really know too much about spotted eagle rays because they're kind of unique. We know what they eat and we know where they live, but it's hard to tell how many there are. As right now, scientists don't know if it's just one type of spotted eagle ray or more than one. So right now we see 3, and you might notice how this male here looks a little different because he has lighter spots, and that could mean he's a whole nother species than these other 2 or not. And we just really don't know their whole species tree yet. So right now they are not considered endangered. However, if you split them into more species groups, that may change. So it is very important to learn about these animals so we can help them in the wild. And one of the ways that scientists are actually doing this is you can take pictures of the back of a spotted eagle ray. So I have one right here. If you take a picture of the very back, each spotted eagle ray has a different pattern of spots on their body, and you can put that into a database, and then a computer can tell each individual apart. So every single spotted eagle ray has its own pattern, and then we can tell each one apart, and then we can use that to help count how many there are in the world. And regular people like you can take pictures of them and send them into the database to help out. Spotted eagle rays are a unique stingray other than their spots. They have a snout. So you might have seen Sam touch the snout right at the beginning of the interaction, but you can see it right there. So the snout on the spotted eagle ray is the only one that we have that has a snout, and they use that in nature to dig through the sand to get their food. Here, there's not much digging for their food because we have lovely divers feeding the food to our stingrays all the time. However, they still sometimes do dig their nose into the sand if they want to, if they smell something good. But they have really squishy noses, and the divers really like squishing their noses. It's an affectionate thing with our stingrays, just like that. And then these animals also have a really good sense of smell and taste, just like sharks do, but they can also sense electroreception, so electrical impulses in the water, and that's why they're coming towards Sam. Other than they're very intelligent, they can actually sense that Sam is alive and he has food, and they'll come toward that. And in nature, when they are eating something that's alive and under the sand, you can't really see that, and it's probably not that smelly, so they have to be able to sense the electrical impulses they put out into the water. So that's like a pulse. So if it's alive, it has a heartbeat, and they can sense the heartbeat under the sand and then dig for it to get their food. Our stingrays here are very lucky. They get to be hand-fed. They don't have to go out and hunt. We give them healthy food. We give them vitamins. We look after them if they're sick or if they have babies. And then we also make sure that their habitat is really nice and clean. As you can see, no floating plastic, no garbage, a really nice habitat for our animals. There's also no predators for them to be worried about. And I'm sure you wanted me to talk about this. Spotted eagle rays, just like other stingrays, do have stingers. If you're not aware, a stinger is not this long tail. So these things hanging off the back end of the animals, those are just tails. They have exceptionally long tails. They're beautiful tails. Their barbs are where the tail and the body meet. So when one comes by, I'll get Sam to point it out to you. They're not cooperating right there, right at the very end of their body. So all of our spotted eagle rays have 2 barbs each. Now we trim them down just to make sure that they're safe to touch, and because Sam's in the water and we have other animals living in here that we won't want to get stung. But it's just a venomous barb. It isn't going to kill anything. It's just meant to stun so that the animals can have a quick getaway if they're ever in really, really big danger, like they think they're going to die. Their barbs are serrated, and they are like a big tooth, and they're pointy. So once they go into a predator, they break off, and then they can have a chance to regrow them. This animal is really lucky because each of these ones has 2 barbs, and then we have to keep them trimmed. And that's not even the most that this type of stingray can have. This type of stingray, spotted eagle ray, can actually have up to 4 barbs. So they have so many backup barbs. And one of the reasons for this is this animal happens to be a pelagic ray. So that means it lives in the water column. You can always tell that based on their shape. If it's a diamond-shaped stingray, they live in the water column, unlike this stinger over here that's benthic. It's a southern stingray, and they live at the bottom. So that's a circular shaped ray. They always live at the bottom. If you live in the water column, there's more of a chance that you could get eaten by another animal just because you don't hide as well. So they have extra barbs to deal with that. And don't feel too worried about stingrays. They're very, very friendly towards humans. Like especially the ones who are here, they're used to us feeding them. So don't be afraid if you ever come to an aquarium and you have to touch them. They're very safe to touch. Wild ones, just think about them as a wild animal. You don't want to approach them unless they're used to humans. But the barbs on the animals, we do trim them down for safety reasons here at the aquarium, but they're not going to do anything to hurt you. Most people who get injured by stingrays in the wild get injured in their legs That's because they step on a stingray, and no one really likes being stepped on. But you can just shuffle your feet to avoid stepping on a stingray, because they'll just sense you coming, because they have that extra sense. They're really amazing at that. And spotted eagle rays, other than those other characteristics I mentioned, their other cool thing that they can do is they can jump. So they don't do it here because I'll show you the whole habitat. So this is our whole stingray habitat. It's not really large enough for them to get enough speed to jump straight out of the water. So they don't do it here, but in the wild, they could easily jump out of the water about 6 feet in the air. So that's like 2 meters. And one of the reasons they do that, we think, is to get rid of parasites that need the water to survive, or maybe just to escape predators. We don't totally know all the reasons for that, but that's one of the reasons they got their name eagle ray, because they look like an eagle and they can also fly like an eagle if they want to. Only for a short distance, though, not a long distance. Obviously, they don't have real wings, but they are excellent swimmers. So that's all I had to say about spotted eagle rays. Hey, Joe, do you have any questions for me?
I have a feeling we will. Danielle, thanks for that awesome intro to the eagle rays. And obviously a huge thanks to Sam for giving us a pretty cool feeding interaction there. I want to give a shout out to some classrooms joining us on YouTube. So Mrs. Lee's 6th grades in Ottawa, Ontario. We've got Mrs. Baldwin's in Elgin, Illinois, hanging out with us. We've got 8th grades in Illinois as well. 8th graders, Mrs. Kelly. 6th, 7s in Milton hanging out with us. Kellogg, Idaho, we've got some 6th graders with Mrs. Colburn. Let's see, Thunder Bay, we've got another school, Our Lady of Charity, hanging out with us. So, oh, and grade 3s in Guelph, Ontario, and Georgetown as well, grade 4s with Mr. Hancock. So lots of cool classrooms hanging out live, even Thornhill, grade 6s. So I'll keep an eye out for some of your questions, but for now, let's jump to a live classroom. Let's go to grade 4s hanging out with us in Surrey, British Columbia. I'll get their microphone turned on. Mrs. Thiessen. How are we doing, Surrey?
What is the biggest eagle ray?
So the biggest, so the question was, what is the biggest eagle ray? The biggest eagle ray is the, you mean in the world or just the one here? Because the largest one here is the spotted eagle ray. That's the lady. So that's the male. He's the littlest. There's another male who's little. And then the biggest one, I like to tell her apart, not only because she's big, but she also has a circle of dots around her head. And that's, she's actually the one right behind Sam. So that's the lady right there.
I think he means in the ocean, in the wild, how big they get.
So the biggest eagle ray in the wild is a manta ray, and I'll just turn my phone around. So if you look at the wall, it's not focusing, but that is the largest one in the world. That was ever the largest manta ray ever recorded. So that is just over 7 meters. Sorry, it's not focusing. So that's humongous, and their average size is 5.5 meters. That animal does start out at like 2 meters big, so they do start out pretty large to begin with. But these animals, the spotted eagle rays, are very closely related to the largest ray in the world, the manta ray. So Sam's actually done the feeding for the spotted eagle rays, but they keep coming around just to say hi because they really like Sam. They think he's entertaining.
All right. Sorry about that, gang. I got kicked out for a second, but it looks like things are running again. So let's jump to our next live classroom. This time we're going to go to Mrs. James' group in San Antonio, Texas. Let's get that microphone turned on. There they are. How are we doing, Texas? right, come nice and close for us when you have a question. Okay, so I think I heard that. Give me a thumbs up if I'm right. Do they have names, the stingrays or the eagle rays? Yep, thumbs up. Okay, Danielle, they're wondering if they have names.
Oh, do the spotted eagle rays have names? I don't know them off the top of my head.
So they do. I know that this one's name is Brienne.
Okay, so the big lady, her name is Brienne. They all have Game of Thrones names, but I can't remember all of their names. I think one of them's Tyrion.
Not so much because like they're not our pets, but it's easier to be able to tell them apart by giving them a name.
So we don't usually give our animals real names. They have number names for when they get into captivity. We give them nicknames here just so that we can more easily identify who they are, because it's easier to remember a name than a number. There are also only 3 of them. So for the longest amount of time before they had nicknames, we used to call them the big lady, the lady, the big male, and the little male. So that's usually what we end up telling them. That's usually what we end up calling them here. But all 3 of them have Game of Thrones nickname names. So the largest lady, her name is Brienne, but the 2 of us can't remember the other 2 names.
All right, fair enough. Mrs. Brecka's group, 2nd graders hanging out in Chatham, Ontario. Let's get that microphone turned on. How we doing, Chatham?
Say hi, guys. So one of my students is curious, are these usually scared of people in nature, or are they trained to come near humans just because they're in the aquarium? Like in nature, if you experience them, are they going to approach you, or are they going to be frightened?
In nature, if you approach a stingray that has never ever seen a human before, they'll probably be scared and swim away. But here, Sam is in the water every day. And same with our other divers. You probably just saw Timmy going in and out of the water behind him. We hand feed our stingrays every single day. So they're very, very used to us. And that is because they've been trained to be used to humans. So we hand feed them to get them more used to our human interaction. It's just like having a stray cat. Like cats are in general pretty okay with humans, but those ones have been raised with humans. If you find a cat that's in the wild that has never met a human before, they're probably not going to be okay with us. So we're very different and they're not used to that. So same with stingrays. Now, if you're thinking about Stingray City, like there's our wild stingrays that are okay with humans. That's because those stingrays for many years have been coming to feed off the scraps that fishermen clean their fish with there. So they're actually pretty used to humans, even though they are wild stingrays. Most of the stingrays that you see in here are not from the wild. They were born at other aquariums. So they're actually very used to us.
All right, great question from Chatham. So Mrs. Cerullo's group in Thornhill, they're wondering about the stingers. You mentioned trimming them. Does that mean that they regrow over time?
Yes, that does mean their stingers regrow over time. So we trim down the barbs, and you can actually, if you come to visit us, you can usually come and see the barbs regrowing on them. It depends on how recently we trim them down. So I'm trying to look at our stingrays right now to see if I see any barbs. Oh, so the small male is going to have his barb trimmed tomorrow. This stingray here has a little, oh yes, of course you're going to wave the water, but there's a little red part at the base of the tail. That's the barb growing back on that one. Same with these 2, you can kind of see it. It's probably like maybe a centimeter long. So we do keep trimming it down. It'll keep growing back and then we trim it down again. It's not on any schedule. We just look to see if they're long and then we'll call the vet and we'll trim it down. So we give them a checkup as well. So we can give them ultrasound, see if they're pregnant. We can weigh them, see if they're eating right. And we can also just look at the inside of the body if we need to.
All right, let's take a little journey to Arnprior, Ontario. We've got some 4th and 5th graders hanging out with Mrs. DeJager. Let me get her microphone turned on. Oh, I might need you to help me out on your end. It's not working on my end. There we go.
Oh, there we go. Okay. They need a question. They need a question. Oh, Eric, go ahead.
What will happen if you get stung?
Okay, that question is what will happen if you get stung? So there's a few things that'll happen is one, you'll get a cool story, a souvenir, and a scar. And that's about it. It will hurt. and you'll have to have a trip to the hospital. But here it won't happen, most likely, because we take precautions to make sure it doesn't happen. But if you're in the wild and you get stung by a stingray, most often you will just have a pain for probably about a week, and it will hurt a lot. But you can get the stingray barb removed at a hospital, and then you can keep it if you want. If it goes into a vital organ like a heart or a lung, that's when you have a really low chance of surviving the encounter, because you need your heart and your lungs to survive. And a stingray barb is serrated, so it goes in really, really nice, and then when you pull it out the same way, it doesn't come out as nicely. So it's kind of like a knife. The venom is not meant to kill, it is only meant to stun. So the venom can't actually do too much harm other than be painful.
All right.
But don't worry too much about it.
Okay, let's go to Irvine, California. 5th graders hanging out with Mrs. Haboen. Let me get that microphone turned on. How we doing, California? All right, I see someone nice up front. What's your question, bud?
Hi, my name is Pranav, and my question is, what part of the ray helps them sense what is alive or not?
What part of the ray holds the, I didn't catch that part.
Helps them sense whether something's alive or not.
Oh, that's a great question. So underneath their heads, so if you look at this stingray here, they have it too. So under their heads, which is this like half round circle part, Sam's gonna pull it up, water, perfect. So right there, they have all of these pores, and the pores have these tiny little sensors in them called electroreceptors, so that they can sense electrical impulses in the water. Their fancy name is ampullae of Lorenzini. So they're just sensing things that are alive in the water, and all stingrays and sharks and sawfish have those. So they can sense where something is hidden. And the nice thing about a lot of eagle rays is they have modified parts to their mouth. So these are Cownose rays, and they also have modified parts to their mouth. And they can dig through the sand as well. And they have a high concentration of those on their face because that's where they eat. So if you ever go to an area where stingrays are and you get to look at their face, you can see all the tiny pores on their head. And that is how they can sense what is living around them. It doesn't work for that far away. So they can only sense for about like a meter or two away from their body. Not that far.
All right. We are going to jump to YouTube and grab another question here. Mr. Hancock's class is wondering a couple things. They're wondering how much do they eat in a day? And then how much do they weigh? Because it's hard to tell when they're in the water.
That's a good point. So my question is that Sam might be able to answer. How much do they eat in a day?
Today on the menu, or we can find out, so our spotted eagle, they'll be fed, I'll just bring this second box, there you go. So that's our spotted eagle rays, what they're going to be fed. But
Wow.
we'll feed our southern stingrays today roughly 16 pounds of food.
Okay, so the southern stingers are going to get fed around 16 pounds of food, and this is just the spotted eagle ray diet. So it's quite a fair bit of food, but they are being fed every day and 3 times a day, so you can see from the schedule. And then there's lots of food going in our. And oh wait, the other question was how much do they weigh? Do you know how much they weigh?
These guys don't weigh that much, a couple ounces, but our largest stingray is 260 pounds.
Yeah, so the largest stingray, which never comes up here, the rough-tailed stingray, he's 260 pounds. The spotted eagle rays, they are a few pounds. It's hard to tell. I don't know what it is off the top of my head.
The educated guess with the large one is roughly like 120 pounds.
Okay, so he's the educated guess would be the largest of the spotted eagle rays, be like 120 pounds.
All right, very cool. Let's see, 4th, 5th graders hanging out with us in Tucson, Arizona. Let me grab your microphone and turn it on for Miss Bell. How are we doing, Tucson?
Are we doing Tucson? Yes. Good. Okay, come on up. Who's asking a question? Come on in. Okay, here comes Adrian. Very quick. Come on, Adrian.
Can sharks eat them?
So the question was, can sharks eat them? And the answer is yes. Sharks can eat stingrays. No, not these ones. So there are sharks in here, and the sharks in here do not snack on stingrays. They like squid and shrimp. You probably saw them swimming around. The sharks that naturally eat stingrays are highly suited for that, and those are the great hammerheads. They use their big hammer to pin a stingray to the ground. So these large stingrays that are about 1 meter across, that's how big the great hammerhead's head is, and that's so that they can get their snack. As well as whales. Whales are also a predator of the stingray, and humans, obviously.
All right. We've got one more live classroom to visit. Mrs. Cooper's group, grade 5/6s at Terrace Bay Public. Let's get that microphone turned on. How are we doing, 5/6s?
Last one.
How are we doing?
Good. Yellow.
Okay, Karis, what's your question?
How long do they live for?
Oh, how long do they live for? That's a great question. So the little ones, the Cownose Rays, they live to be like up to 15 years old. The southern stingrays, they live to like 20, 25.
We actually have some of our Cownose here at 20 years old.
Wow, we have Cownose Rays that are 20 years old. I was just informed. So that's really impressive. They do live quite a bit longer here because, you know, no predators, ample food, healthcare. Our rough-tailed stingray, the oldest one, how old do you say he is, Sam?
In his late 20s.
He's in his late 20s. And then the spotted eagles are the hard ones. We actually don't know how long they live. They are new additions to captivity. So because 2 of ours are from the wild, we have no idea how old they are. We can just guess. And the youngest one, he was born in another aquarium. I think he was born in 2016 or 2015. So he's still pretty young, but he'll age. And this is the youngest one here, right there. So he has a birthday. I just don't remember it right now. So we will, when he eventually passes away, which hopefully will be a long, long time from now, we'll know exactly how old he is, and then we'll be able to learn more about how old they get.
All right. Well, first of all, a huge thank you to our YouTube groups for tuning in. Thanks for sending in those awesome questions and joining us from all over Ontario, around Canada and the US. Huge thank you to our on-class classrooms. Thank you so much for joining us on screen and your great questions. And then Danielle and Sam, thanks so much for another great session at Ripley's Aquarium. We love our virtual field trips to Toronto.
Oh, thank you so much. I'll get Sam to give us a wave.
Bye, everybody.
All right. Well, happy holidays, everybody. I'm going to turn the microphones on. Let's get nice and loud. A big goodbye and thank you before we sign.
Oh, you're welcome, everyone. Sam, can you give us a...
All right. Good job, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your weeks. Thanks for joining us today. And obviously a huge thank you to Ripley's Aquarium of Canada for another awesome virtual field trip. We're going to sign off for today. Thanks a lot, everyone.